Welcome back. I'm Teresa Bruno, the host of the Soul Talks podcast, and I'm so excited that we have Cindy Halsted back with us today to tell more of her story. So listen in. You and Bruce you met in Tim Keller's church.
Yeah.
You were in ministry your whole life. You didn't
Okay.
work for quite a while when the babies were little. When you
Yep.
ultimately did start to work, it was in something that was ministry related.
Yep.
So your children, very different from the way you grew up,
Mm,
lived in this environment that there was no questioning. I don't know
mhm.
if there was room for questioning,
Right.
but what role did that kind of absolute faith that you and Bruce had
Mhm.
play in when Anna began to rebel?
Yeah. Both of us, I grew up in both of us, I would say it was like that cultural Christian home, not the authenticity of grace and truth beautifully kissed together.
Mm.
So when we raised our kids, we were doing the best we can. But back then in the 1980s, purity culture was big, which the intent of it is to help you feel good about yourself and all those different things. What it missed was the heart, I think, in some ways. And the way we put it on our kids is it was more legalism.
Mhm.
It came across as, harsh. And I we thought we were doing so well. And in many ways, our kids nowadays, they're like, you guys were great. You were doing the
Mhm.
best you could. But it came across at times, I think, as you need to be a certain way and then you're accepted,
Mhm.
as opposed to you're accepted and you can get to be this way. And so I
Mhm.
wish, those times it just got a little twisted in our hearts.
Well, yeah, and they're in this situation where both parents are deeply vested in ministry, and that's what you talk about. And you talk about faith and a walk, and you've got this beautiful young girl who's starting to get attention, and it's rattling you, and it's rattling her dad. And then there's also this very natural, it's that time in your life when you go, yeah, I'm not going to believe what they're going to believe. I don't want to walk that walk. So it
Yeah.
kind of gets all piled on. It's this amalgam of stuff that's coming at
Yeah.
her.
Yeah.
Would you kind of tell her story from that point forward?
So how that changed in me is kind of has to do a little bit with my own story. So I mentioned, grew up and I sat under Tim Keller, had great people around me, but I felt like I always got to know the Lord more like secondhand smoke. Like
Hmm.
whatever someone else said about God, I learned that, but I didn't really spend a lot of time reading the word myself.
Hmm.
I would read bits and parts, but I couldn't even make it through the 1 year Bible. I would quit. I wasn't very disciplined.
But I
and
think that's more the norm than not.
so that combined with the depression and the pressures of ministry in New York, I ended up having a breakdown. I just couldn't take it anymore. And so we ended up leaving New York City, and my husband so kindly chose me, which was amazing. But when I was in Florida, I can remember I went from striving in New York City to almost falling asleep in a way. I felt at times like Dorothy outside of the poppy and, the poppies outside of Emerald City. And my husband called me at one point. He had taken a job running a foundation and he was in India. And he said to me, he goes, Cindy, these people here really love Jesus. And I was like, yeah, it's great. He's like, no, you're not listening to me. People here really love Jesus. And I can remember that moment being like, I feel like I'm asleep. Like, I don't have major depression. I don't have anything that's incredibly wrong. Anna at the time was probably just at 11, 12. Kids were manageable, but I felt like my life was not the more it could be.
Hmm.
And so I said, God, I don't even know what this means. And I prayed the very dangerous prayer. I said, God, I want more. I don't know if I want to live like this. Like, I'm going to church on Sundays but I feel like I look like there's something, well, I don't know how to say this part, but anyway, I was like, God, I want more. I feel like there's something more for me. And I didn't know what that meant or how to find that. And so I ended up meeting this woman, Virginia, who always had so much joy in her heart. She just bubbled over. Her eyes were glowing. And I remember saying to her, okay, what's your deal? Why are you always so joyful? And she was like, oh, I'm a God chaser. I chase God. And I was like, okay, what are you talking about? And who even talks like that? Like, it was
I
just,
know. I had never heard those words before. I'm a God chaser.
yeah. And I was like, what? She goes, well, he's doing stuff all around the world and we're following him. And I'm like, and then she put the song on for me back in the day when Kim Walker Smith sang the song He Loves Us.
Mhm.
And when she played that, something in me was like, whoa, wait, what is that? Like, he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. And I was like, I could just feel something. I'm like, okay, I want more of that. I
Mhm.
think I need some more of emotional, because I was so in my head with theology and all that, but I was missing some of the emotion.
Mhm.
And it started me down a journey of exploring more of what God was doing around the world. Like, I saw a video of him um, worshiping in the underground church of China. And I was like, I've never worshiped like that.
Mhm.
I can worship at a football game
Mhm.
and I can go nuts, but I can't worship at church. And so as I started to embrace more of that in me and the fullness of who I was, it was interesting because I think my kids saw that. And yet I was compartmentalizing my faith. Like, to me, I was like, do great. But then when I looked at Anna, I still had a lot of fear. I was like, well, she could do this. And it was a journey because she started, there's a lot of things that happened in this story, but she started making some poor choices that just solidified my fear even more. I don't know
Yeah,
if
and
you
it kind of turned
go
your
into it.
family upside down and inside out. And I mean, I understand it. I had a child who went through some similar things and
Mm,
also had depression. And when that happens in a family, the other children suffer,
yep.
the marriage suffers,
Yeah.
everything gets and then that child gets so highlighted, abnormally highlighted.
Yeah.
But I love the way that you have talked about and been so honest about. So you have this child who's, I don't know if you would call it in crisis, but she was acting out. And
Yeah.
she certainly was not going down the path that Christina had or that you hoped for your
Mhm.
children. And you were afraid, not only for her as a beautiful young woman in the world, but just afraid.
Well, and she did some things like she ran away a couple times and she was cutting, she was drinking and doing anything she could do to numb the pain she was feeling too. And so it was a desperate situation. And yet I knew from the stories in the word that God could do a lot to help her, but I could not match those together. And it was a woman who actually said to me, Cindy, and very brave woman, because she had older kids. And she said, Cindy, I hear you say that you're praying for Anna, but it really sounds like you're in a lot of fear over Anna and you're putting this Christian spin of prayer.
Mm.
And when she said that, because I had been doing the 90-day Bible reading it, there's so much in there about do not fear, do not fear, not because you're being a bad Christian, but almost like we're not meant to live in fear. It's like putting water in a gasoline tank in a car. It just doesn't work right. Like, you
Mhm.
can do it, but we know now, even through science, fear hurts us in so many ways. And I can remember in that moment going, oh my gosh, I am in total fear over Anna. And so I saw this picture in my head. It was crazy. It was like there was this hole, and Anna was in this hole, and she was dark and depressed. She was 14 at the time. She was in fear and worry and anxiety. I was in the hole too. I was in fear and worry and anxiety. I was explaining mine. And I was like, okay, God, you got to help me here. And I saw this picture of, like, there was this rope ladder and I got out of the hole. And I was like, I said to him, I was like, help me see what you see when you look at Anna. And it was almost instant. It was like, she's amazing. She's brilliant. She's wonderful. She's beautiful. She's kind. She's thoughtful. But I couldn't see any of that because all I was focusing on is what she wasn't. And I was like, Lord, forgive me for not appreciating this treasure that you made. She's fearfully and wonderfully made. So she came home from that school that day. And I remember her hair was dark. She was just like depressed. And I walked right over to her and I put my hands on her shoulders. And I said, Anna, I am so sorry for all the ways I have feared over you. You know what? You're going to be fine. There's gold inside of you and you're going to figure things out. And I walked away from her. And she would tell you that's the day that she said, maybe I'm okay. Because if mom sees something in me, it gave her something to hold on to as opposed to feeling like the black sheep.
Yeah.
And everything started to turn from that.
So I know you do a lot of coaching of parents and of teens.
Yeah.
And you've been led to do parental coaching because of your experiences with
Yes.
Anna. So take where you grew in that as a mom and
Yeah.
as a person and in your spiritual growth.
Yeah.
And like take me through a coaching of a situation that would have been like yours and how you'd handle that today.
Sure. Well, a lot of times the parents will say, can you take our child and help them? And at first, after I went through this, that is what we would do. But it was a bit discouraging because we'd help the kid and they would start to change, start to believe in themselves, but we send them back home to the same circumstances. And the parents, and I get it. I'd be like, okay, I'm waiting for them to mess up here. And so the familiarity of what the parents went through, the kids would almost like go right back into that old way. So we said, okay, wait. You come first. Let's see what's going on inside of you. And that's how I got the statement. The concept of seeing someone starts with the one who's looking. So how are you looking at your child? Are you looking at them because you have unhealed stuff in you?
And we all do.
Mm-hmm.
And we might love our children as much as we absolutely know how to love. And it is never our intent to hurt. And yet, despite
Sure.
all of it, we hurt our children.
Exactly. And we normalize that. And I say that, but let's look for the gaping holes. Let's look for the things that are complete weaknesses. Does your child trigger you? Do you give them your power to where they're doing something wrong? You're like, I can't believe you would do this. Like, hold. We need to distance a bit. They're a child. You're an adult. Don't give your power away here. Put whatever they're doing outside of your chest. Let's look at it together. What is this reminding you of? And honestly, I bring this type of prayer in a lot called releasing prayer that helps you go back in your own story to see, is this reminding me of something? And then you can do some healing on that. And it helps you interact with your kids currently so you can deal with it as much as possible. So cleaning out some of the things that get in there, and that's what we end up doing a lot with coaching. Then you can go forward and say, okay, how can you establish boundaries? How can you be the parent here? How can you help them? But you usually have to go back and just do a little bit of cleanup work on some things that might
Or
be
a lot.
Yeah, or a lot. And this is how it plays out. The people closest to you are the ones that, end up getting the junk that's just like right at the surface.
And I like to say the people closest to you are husbands, wives, parents, mothers-in-law.
Yep.
They are our best teachers. They are in this
Absolutely.
life to teach us what we're
Absolutely.
really meant to know. But it's so painful to learn.
I know. And that's why what I'm doing currently is I love to work with women leaders to help them realize, listen, you can do all the stuff in business. You can do this stuff in your whatever roles, that you have in life. But let's look at what's closest to you and let's see, okay, where is it not working?
Yeah.
Why is it not working? Let's go after that and one of the hardest things, Teresa, is for a successful woman leader to put the oxygen mask on first. Like, the airplane when they say put it on first before your child, you're like,
Right.
what? It feels so weird.
Yeah.
to think of yourself, but you can't give what you don't have. And
Mhm.
so if you get to heal these things, then you could do that more. The codependent part of me was I get my identity for what I do for others. And it's like, no, 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 no. Get you right. And that's why the scripture verse I love that I'm basing my coaching business off of is love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. Love your neighbor as yourself. So mine used to be love God and everything, love others, and then kind of like you too.
Yeah.
You
My
got to
great
switch.
grandmother had that little scripture sitting in her bedroom on a dresser. I've said Jordan, my oldest, started really going into a deep, difficult depression when he was about 15.
Mm,
And, we were taking him to various therapists and nothing was helping. And it seemed to be
mm,
getting worse and worse and worse. Interestingly, was at the height of my success in both businesses.
yeah.
So I've got this marketing agency that's really
Yeah.
big and had just taken on a huge consultancy with the university. I've got this jewelry business that's thriving. And I'd get a call. I'd be in New York in a meeting, showing jewelry to Vogue, and Jordan's run away. And I leave that and I run home.
Yeah.
But one of the things that began to happen to me then, but I can look back and really see where I needed work was, I was so wrapped up in the image of me
Mhm,
that I was pushing out into the world. Oh,
mhm.
she's smart. Oh, she's successful in business. Oh, she's got it all together. And I had this son who was crumbling at home.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, why aren't you like me? Why can't you get it together? Why
Mhm,
aren't you looking like the rest of the family? Why aren't you
mhm.
as easy as your brother? I might not have said those things, but that's what I was putting out in the way I was handling it.
Yeah.
And so, for me in parenting, it was a lot of letting go of what I thought the paradigm of success for a family looked like,
Yeah.
and pushing my
Mhm.
perfectionist need for success onto my children in what they were supposed to do, achieve,
Yeah.
be.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's a problem. I mean, it's such a problem because we create these what we think will work for them, but yet they're unique. Every single person's different and they're amazing. And I'm built a certain way, but they are built differently. And so getting a place to see that and appreciate that, I think it's really hard for parents who might be successful in the world's eyes and go conquer the world. And this child has different giftings put inside them. They would just like to, work in an ice cream
Yeah.
shop and they're okay with
Well,
that.
and it is interesting. There's a pendulum swing because, Jordan now, he's the most worked out human I know. All those years of therapy, and he's got a very analytical mind. And when he decided to come back in the world worked out, boy, he can take you toe to toe for anything you might want to say, but he'll analyze the situation. He'll just say, no, absolutely not. That's not the truth. And that, he's very beautifully worked out. But both of my kids would say, we never want to work as hard as you did. We do not want our lives to look like that. That is really not how we define joy, happiness, fulfillment, contentment. And even though it kind of hurts, not really so much anymore because I've heard it a lot, but I'm so proud that that's where they are. I wish I
And that they
had
could say
been.
that to you.
Well, that they can say it
Good.
and that's really what they feel deep down
Yep.
inside. In
Yep.
their 20s, they can say, yeah, you were successful, but man, you didn't have much of a life.
Mm.
And I'm so happy that at least the turn came where it created something positive in them ultimately.
Mhm, mhm. And it's really dangerous for parents to live out their dreams through their kids. What you want to do, it's more like this is God's son or daughter. He's created them. And you're in a way leasing, that sounds horrible, but it's not really what it is. But it's like you're raising them unto him to become their own people. I like to say when we do the parenting coaching is, you're raising this child to leave you, come back as friends. And it's really hard because some of us, it's how we get our identity, how we feel okay, how they're doing, affects us. It's too much freight. It's too much weight on a kid to be the center. And so I like to say to moms, what's your passion? Find your passion. If it's not work, if you're at home, find something so that they can see you explore and learn and grow. And that'll be huge for them. I mean, yeah.
Well, and I think also one of the things that certainly happened to me late in life and differently, not because of divorce, but because of death, is learning to be a single parent.
Uh,
You
yeah.
know, my husband died when my boys were 22 and 26, still both in the college process. Nobody was married. They were used to leaning so hard into their dad for advice, for fun, for football games, and I didn't realize how much, I like to think, well, I'm the center of the family and they come back for me, and it's like, we're this big, happy family. And actually so much of what they did with their dad was what pulled them back to us over and over again. And it was so
Mm,
hard for me to figure out, just like you said, find your passion. What is your passion? It was hard for me to figure out, what do I have to offer these young men that makes them want to come back and recreate family without dad. But I think a lot of women, they go through it usually more in the divorce mode. But it's figuring out, especially with boys, do I have that thing that, connects them back? But I would say, I think moms and boys have something that, I do think boys really need their moms, no matter what age they are. And we have come to a place where it's pretty beautiful. But hard learning.
yes. Hard learning. And I always say to moms who have 18 and over kids, just if you can do this, don't offer unsolicited advice. Let them come
It's
to you.
so stinking hard.
I know.
So hard.
Here, I'll help you on this. When you do offer unsolicited advice, what can be heard by them is, mom doesn't think I've got it, so she's got to fix me. Mom doesn't
Ooh,
think
that's strong.
sorry. Mom doesn't think I can figure things out.
Mhm.
And so she has to come in and rescue me. As opposed to, let's say Jordan tells you something he's going through at work and you're like, wow, that's tough. And man, buddy, I'm with you. And you
Yeah.
just be present.
Yeah.
Then when he's ready, he'll ask you advice
Yeah.
and he'll feel better about himself,
Yeah.
which is really
That's
cool.
huge. I'll just tell you one quick thing in closing. And, Cindy, we haven't even really gotten to the crux of your life in the last 2 hours. So, but this is exactly how I had hoped it would work. And we'll come back.
Good.
We'll come back to two ginormous meaty parts. But Andrew does the funniest thing. So he'll sit and he'll be telling me about something that's going on in his life. And I'll say, I know how that feels. I'm exactly like that. And I'll start to say it. And he'll say, Mom, this is about me, not about you.
There you go. Good job. Good job.
And I'll be like, you're right. I'm quiet. But
It's so cool though that he can use his voice like that.
He calls me out all the time, but gently and sweetly. But he'll go, Mom, this is about me.
Yeah. So good. Our kids, listen, my husband and I both have our masters. I mean, I'm doing this coaching. And my kids still today, it's so sweet. I'll jump into something where I shouldn't be jumping into. And, Christina will say, Mom, thank you. I really sense your care there, but I think I'm good on this. And I was like, and Pierce does that too with us, and Pierce and Sienna, because they're married. And it's like, what a gift that they can have their voice. And we're just going to make mistakes. We're going to.
Yeah.
And having that open communication is huge. I mean, that's one of my dreams, is for adults and their adult children to be able to do life together well.
Right.
And just oh yeah.
Oh, 100%. Cindy, I've had so much fun having you with us today, and just so much wisdom in your life in so many areas, and so much vulnerability in so many places. I appreciate all that you've shared with us.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Great to be with you. Great to be with you too. You're so easy to talk to.
Thank you. Many more to come.
Okay.
Okay. Take care.
You too.